Hello and welcome to the North Coast Journal Preview. This is a show where we take a look at what's coming in this week's edition of the North Coast Journal. I am your host, Tanya Shrum, and we are joined by North Coast Journal's managing editor, Jennifer Fumiko Cahill. Welcome.
Hello, Tanya. How are you doing?
I am staying dry. Hope you are as well.
Always.
Nobody's floating away yet. Nobody's blowing away yet in this wind.
No, I mean, knock wood. It's not like I got to put rocks in my pocket, but still.
Yeah.
Still.
I know. I was saying before we started with our illustrious producer that my dogs were like, "Where are we living?" It was just quite a howling night.
Yeah, I mean, I probably respond to storms and earthquakes the same way your dogs do. I'm under a table, freaking out. I should probably get a thunder shirt.
Oh, I think we all need a thunder shirt now and again for sure. Well, we've got some interesting stories to get to. A mixed bag of the good and the bad.
Yeah, and this week we have a cover from _Native News, which I just want to start out by saying the story is by Lyric Aquino. Great name.
Which is a great name.
I know. And Report for America, which is a great kind of a training program for new reporters working in established newsrooms. And _Native News does this great thing, which is they have these stories that are impactful and important, well written. The photographs are beautiful, and they are really interested in sharing the information. This is not a place that's chasing clicks. This is not a place that is trying to court a particular audience in order to make money. They are trying to get news out about Native issues, ecological issues, etc. And so they share their stories with us and allow you to repost and reprint, etc. And so as you're sharing, as you're going through, I would strongly recommend, if you are interested in the topics that you find in this story, go check out _Native News and check out what other stories they have on their site, because it's all really interesting stuff. And there's so much happening with land back. There's so much happening with changes about the environment. There's so much happening about Native culture and revitalization and sovereignty happening. It really is just a really rich source. So please go check them out. They're fantastic.
And this article was part of our In the Good News column.
Right. This is a story that's really close to our heart about the Klamath River ecosystem. I, at one point, a few years ago, thought to myself, we are going to be writing about these dams forever, because every time something would happen, things would fall back, etc. But we have written also about the wonderful success of dam removal. And I also foolishly thought back then, with my pessimistic mind, boy, there's just too much damage. It's going to take forever. And there is a lot of damage, and there is a long way to go, but we are already seeing some comebacks happening in the Klamath River. So you've got salmon returning, you've got wildlife returning to the area. Once there is enough water flowing in the river, once there is room for salmon to swim and spawn and do all their salmon stuff, it really is happening quickly. And it's wonderful to see. It's good news. It's the actual nature is healing rather than the ironic comment. And the only thing that is worrisome in this story mostly is about all of the programs, all of the scientists, all of the folks who got here. There's just a massive multi-generational activist movement of Native people working toward this. But when we get to the scientists and the people who are working on dam removal and what has to be done logistically, what has to be done in terms of clearing the area, making it habitable again. Some of those programs, some of the funding is being cut by federal cuts. We're all seeing it, right? In every sector of life, we're seeing cuts to all kinds of programs. We talked last week about Food for People undergoing cuts, about the Harvest Hub. All of those programs are threatened. Everybody and their mother who works in nonprofits can tell you that funding is really coming up short. And the cuts that the Trump administration is making are, on the federal level, are threatening some of the progress and some of the work that these folks are doing.
And it's unfortunate that not only is the process being threatened by these budget cuts, but the actual accumulation of data and how it's going, which can influence other campaigns to remove dams.
Right. That's the kind of research that you need to back up the thing that you're proposing next, right? The next step, you have to show progress. And in order to do that, you need monitoring, you need data, you need all those things. And it makes it really hard for the next step of the process to go forward. So I encourage everybody to read that and really get an understanding of where we are, like take a moment to enjoy the positives, and then really think about how our, hassling our representatives and hassling the government and protests and everything else and voting, how all that stuff, just after Election Day, it's worth thinking about how all of that stuff affects, just like an ecosystem, one thing touches another, and the federal cuts are really making a huge impact.
And these days after the election, we can all take a breath and get ready for that next fight, that next challenge.
Yeah, I think that's part of what is amazing about the network of Native activists who have been working on the dams for so long.
Tirelessly, yeah.
Right. It's never just like, oh, that's done and we're just going to settle. It is really about what's next. And yeah, so please read the story. It's great.
All right. Well, thank you, Jennifer. And I encourage everybody to pick up this week's journal and read the entire story. And with that, are we pivoting to your story or to the story by Kim next?
You know what? Let's talk about Kim, because that's one that I want to mostly just give you some background on, because she's going to be updating that story in the coming days. So yesterday we were going to press, just so you know. On Tuesdays we go to press, and then on Thursdays the paper and the online version go live. Pick them up at the co-op or whatever. But on Tuesdays we get a little crazy, because Tuesdays are also when the supervisors meetings are. Election day, everything seems to happen on Tuesday. When I tell you that even the fried chicken special at Six Rivers Brewery is on a Tuesday when I can't go. So enjoy it. But yesterday was one of those days when we knew a big story this week was going to be this vote on censuring Michelle Bushnell, who is one of the supervisors, Humboldt County supervisors. We knew that this vote was coming. And so Kim Ware was queued up, ready to watch this thing, ready to get started. But the delays kind of kept going. They were meeting in private. There was they were having some closed door work. And then we were waiting. We were like, is this story even going to make it to our deadline? And because when the press needs the paper, the press needs the paper. So we were on a knife's edge. But I got to hand it to Kim. She really stuck in there. Our production department is always, as our production manager said, our production manager, Holly Harvey, always says, Semper Gumby, stay flexible. And so anyway, she was able, it is. So she was able to get this story up, but there are some things that have happened since that I want to make sure everybody goes online to northcoastjournal.com, read it in the paper for the background of it, for what happened, but she's got updates. So what the background is basically the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors had to vote on whether or not to censure Michelle Bushnell. And that is related to her behavior with coworkers and in the office. And there was an outside investigation that was done to establish what really happened, right? What the facts, as they say throughout, more than likely, this is what happened. And it basically came from shouting, yelling, raising your voice, speaking in a hostile manner, cursing, and slamming the door, etc. And just not behaving in a professional way and behaving in a way that is not the environment you want for work, right? We've all heard of like creating a hostile work environment, that sort of thing. So it is basically an HR problem. It's set in a government position, right? And this matters a lot because we're talking about the people that we employ as taxpayers, right? The people that we have making our decisions, representing us, making sure that our local government runs smoothly. So the report basically said that the incidents that were alleged did happen, and the response from Bushnell was a clear apology. She said, "In no way should I ever make an employee feel uncomfortable at work." She admitted she was very loud, and that because she felt wronged, were her words, she basically, I would say, lost her temper. She referred to it as responding with a fight or flight response, and she pointed out that that is related to an abusive relationship and trauma that she has from her past. And she said, "To the employees, I am regretful and I wish I would have handled it differently." So this is not the first time that this has happened, however. So 3 years ago, almost to the day, or was it to the day, Bushnell faced admonishment from a similar situation in which a staff member said that there was, again, I believe it was more yelling, and it's just not professional behavior, right? So again, this is the second time for this behavior. So, and what Mike Wilson, Supervisor Mike Wilson, pointed out was that this kind of atmosphere can create what he referred to as a chilling effect. Not chilling like being oh so chill, but making it so that people don't feel like they can tell you the truth, right? Or they don't feel like they can raise conflict, or they're more concerned with keeping you happy rather than keeping things going well, right? And you're worried now about your boss, not about your job. And I think we've all been there, yes? Everybody's had that work situation. So
I think we could plant that over a few things in this country right now.
Yeah. And so how we set a tone in an office, this is probably a good time to talk about this. And we've had other issues with people's behavior, elected officials' behavior in Arcata and on the Board of Supervisors. And some of this is about creating a tone where government can really work and where people are focused on the work in front of them instead of focused on interpersonal conflict or worrying, feeling freaked out all the time and not able to do their jobs. If we want things to run well, we've got to have offices that run well.
Well, and at bare minimum, it's not effective leadership.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why they do things like vote on censure. So the investigation, by the way, cost about $8,500, which comes out of the liability fund, not like the general fund or whatever, but the liability fund. So this is money they have set aside for that. As we were going to press yesterday, because today is Wednesday, the board was still discussing a separate action that Steve Madrone brought forth to remove Bushnell from her assignments and her role as chair in regard to the findings from the outside investigation. So Again, Kim will have updates on that online at northcoastjournal.com. So check it out to get the full response from Bushnell and the update on what action is going to be taken.
Well, and we always appreciate Kim Weir bringing us what's going on, and I'll be looking for that later on. All right, and with that, we've got another story out of the scary and the darkness come the local heroes.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about, well, we talked a lot about SNAP benefits being halted. Since last week, a couple of judges have ordered that holding SNAP benefits back during the government shutdown is unlawful. And so essentially the Trump administration has been ordered to pay them out. And as you may recall, they stopped November 1st. So people who were waiting for that money to come in, they give you a card for your CalFresh. That's what we call it in California. They give you the card and money is added onto it. But starting November 1st, the money did not come in. This is really hard. Imagine those of us who are living check to check, you know how hard it is to get ahead, to have some sort of a cushion. It is not easy. And so for folks who are in that position where SNAP benefits really help put food on the table, this was a terrifying thing. But even after it was declared that, you know, we've got to have benefits paid out, the problem is that that takes time. Getting that machine, getting those wheels rolling again takes time. And also the Trump administration is maintaining that they only have half the funds in the Department of Agriculture's coffers to use that it normally takes for a month. So the payout is apparently going to be reduced, possibly in half, roughly in half, and also delayed. So folks are still in limbo, even though the declaration has been made that it's not legal to hold back the money. It doesn't change what's on your card, which right now is nothing. And I don't know if anybody else saw them, but there are some troubling social media posts from the president talking about whether or not those monies will be paid. So with that in mind, we are still looking around and seeing, you know, as members of our community and on the North Coast, seeing what we can do to help our friends and neighbors and people we don't know, because we are human beings and hopefully not utterly selfish. So those people who are in a position to help are sometimes doing things that are really admirable, right? So we're seeing like private individuals putting together funds to buy gift cards for supermarkets. We're seeing people put together ersatz food pantries on their front yards. There were people I saw posting that they were putting out food along with candy on Halloween and, you know, things like that. They're lovely gestures. And I saw a couple from restaurants. And one of the restaurants that posted up that they would be offering food for free to people who are missing their SNAP benefits was Falafel Love. And I contacted the owner, Avi Liebson, to talk about it. And we had a really interesting conversation about what it means to help our neighbors and also about how complicated it is to do good in a public way. So basically what Avi did is he put out a post on social media, put out posts on social media offering that people who came in and were missing their SNAP benefits could come in and get some chicken soup for free. Sidebar, this chicken soup sounds and looks amazing. But basically he said it really cost him nothing other than, you know, time and labor. He used leftovers and things that were leftovers, meaning like things that hadn't been sold that day or what, you know, didn't get used for ingredients, the pita bread and the chicken that he normally gives away at the end of the day, either to employees in the shop or to folks locally who could use a little extra food. He turned the pita bread into croutons, and he boiled down the quarter chicken special to make a chicken stock. And he did what people do at home all the time. And he said that outside of the chicken, that the ingredients for this giant pot of soup the first pot of soup he made was about $10. It basically cost him nothing. But he had a moment's hesitation when he was like, is this just like, he put it, is this just virtue signaling on my part? Because how many people are really going to come down here? Because he's in King Salmon, and that for some folks is out of the way. And with the price of gas and everything else, was like, I don't know, is this the thing to do? Or is it just like, because he knew the response from the general public would be really positive. But he was like, how much is this actually going to help people? And then, hearkening back to Linda's story last week, Linda Stansberry's story about not being a perfectionist and just doing what you can do for people, he decided, you know what, F it. And those were his words, although less modestly said. He said, forget this. I'm just gonna do what I can do, which is make a friggin' pot of soup. And so he made the soup, put it out there, and he acknowledges that, like, yeah, there are only like a dozen and change people who came in and got a meal. I would say that for a dozen or so people coming in and getting a hot meal when you didn't think you had one, and also to feel somebody else caring about you, makes a big difference. And I say that as a person who has interviewed folks at St. Vincent de Paul, where they are feeding people for free every single day and working tirelessly to make fresh homemade meals for people. It is worth it. It is always worth it to feed people who need to be fed. And he basically said that he was himself kind of inspired by the folks who run Frankie's Bagels and the Bands, husband and wife, the Bands. They have been donating their bagels to, their unsold bagels at the end of the day, because we all know what happens to a day-old bagel. They donate them, instead of just letting them go stale or whatever, or using them for something else, they donate them for people who need to eat, like at St. Vincent de Paul, like at Food for People. And it makes a tremendous difference. Also, excellent bagels. And so he was sort of inspired by that, and he thought, you know what? Okay, maybe this will motivate somebody. He said, maybe I'm naive, but maybe we should be more naive more often. Like, maybe this will inspire somebody else to donate some money to a food bank, donate some money to, like, he used to work with Food Not Bombs and has a lot of really positive things to say about Food Not Bombs, who are feeding people every week on the plaza and in Eureka. And again, these are people who just decided, we get up every day and feed people because nobody should be hungry. And that's one of the things that he pointed out. He was like, it's not about trying to be like, oh, look at what I'm doing. It is about the fact that this is a human rights issue. If people are not having enough food to be, as he put it, healthfully nourished, we have a problem in this country. And that the SNAP benefits are being held back is the most obvious sign of it. But really, in general, a country with our vast wealth should not have hungry people. And it really is on us as a society and as a group and with our government to make this not just an issue of individual responsibility, although he's very happy and I'm very happy to hear about people feeding those in our lives. But it is really something, it's a major problem that we need to be thinking about all the time.
All right. Well, thank you, Jennifer. I think this highlights that every community can get creative in this time of need. And don't be perfect, just be there. And that wraps up our time for this week. The current edition of the North Coast Journal will be available on newsstands tomorrow. Pick up your copy, or of course you can find it at northcoastjournal.com. I am Tanya Schrum. Thanks for being with us. Thanks to Jennifer and to Matt behind the scenes. And thanks for staying informed and supportive here on our North Coast community.